Hello, everybody, it's Karen. Do hope you're well. Today I'm going to talk about my mum. Now, my mother was the seventh child, and apparently she was the seventh child of a seventh child, but I have no proof of that. But she used to see various things, ghosts mainly, and she was born in the 20s, so she would keep it to herself a lot of the time. Classed as a silent generation, but from time to time she would discuss it with me, because as I got older I got into tarot cards and the spiritual side of things. She could relate to it a little bit more. On this occasion she said, she rang me up and said, when you come down to see me next, she says, will you just spend a bit extra time? She said, I want to talk to you about something. I'm like, oh. That she never asked me that, she never rang me really, I was always the one that phoned her, so that was really out the blue, and I thought it must be something serious. So we arranged and I went down to see her, and I get there. My father's in the garden, because they're both retired by now, and he's doing his garden, and my mum says, let's make a cup of tea, she says. So we're going to make a cup of tea, I sit with her, she's passing the time of day with me, and I'm thinking, this is not right. She's very direct, my mother was, to the point, and she was skirting around all these different things. I went, Mum, whatever it is that's troubling you, tell me, because I'm here, tell me and see if I can help. So she seemed to pluck up a bit of courage, and she says, about a week ago I was asleep in bed in the middle of the night with your dad, and she says, and I woke up very, very quickly out of her sleep. She said, and I turned over, and there at the edge of the room was this person standing there. And I'm like, okay, you mean a real person? She says, no, she's a ghost type person. And I says, well, was it like solid or? No, she says, you could see through it. She said, it had got its profile to me. She said, it got its left arm and its profile to me. She says, and it slightly turned to me. But all its face was blurred. She said, it was I could see straight through it. And this ghost put its hand on its stomach. She says, and I was really about to sit up, and she says, and it just dissipated and disappeared like ether. Well, oh, right, okay. So I assumed that was it. So I carried on drinking my tea. She said, well, what do you think? I went, well, do you know who it was? And she says, it looked really familiar, but I couldn't quite understand who it was. I went, oh, right. I said, well, perhaps you were dreaming. She says, no, I definitely wasn't dreaming. Oh. There was a bit of a pause. She says, because I definitely wasn't dreaming, because it happened again the next night. Now, this really piqued my interest now. I said, oh, okay, so I'm listening. She's a similar time, 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. She says, I was fast asleep and I was woken quickly. She says, and I turned over. She says, and there it was. She says, this time it's a bit more solid looking, and it was turned a little bit more to me. She says, and it was clearly a male and dressed in some form of uniform. And she says, but it had a particular blue glow about it. She says, it lit the room up. And she says, and the feeling I got was that it was a younger person. And again, she says, this time I started to push myself up the bed. She said, watching it all the time. She says, but it had got a few more facial features this time. I said, well, was it solid? She says, no, it was still see-through a little bit. I said, well, okay. She said, again, it used its left hand and put its hand on its stomach. She says, so I was pushing myself up to get out of bed. She says, and it disappeared again. So, well, what did you do this time? She says, nothing, I just turned over and snuggled up to your dad and went back to sleep. Oh, right. So they had a little bit of a discuss about what we thought it might be, what I thought it was. I said, well, clearly there's not a coincidence. This is obviously meant to be in somewhere down the line. She says, yeah, I totally agree with you, she says. And anyway, I carried on drinking my tea and eating my bit of cake. Then she says, yeah, I agree. She says, there's no coincidence here. And she says, because it happened the next night as well. And I was like, okay. I sat forward and put my drink down. I went, okay, then what happened this time? This is the bit I want to talk to you about. I said, go on then. She says, the third night, same sort of thing, 3ish in the morning, she woke up and there it was. But this time it was vivid, a vivid light coming from it. And the person was like covered in blue light, but it had a uniform on. She says, and this time it was virtually solid. And I knew who it was this time, because it got its facial features, but it was somebody very, very young and somebody that I have known. I went, okay. She says, and it's your father's brother. I went, really? She says, yeah, honestly. And I said, oh, what? I said, well, okay then. So she told me who she thought it was, one of my dad's brothers, and she said, but he nodded at me like that and put his hand on his stomach. And she says, no, I thought, I'll sit up now. And I sat up and put my legs over the edge of the bed, and when I did that, he'd gone. But the thing about this that was really strange is that this particular brother of my father's was still alive. And she says, it's really unnerving. Karen. She just called me Karen. It's really unnerving. I said, I'm not surprised. I said, once you could put it down for 2 in the middle of a dream and you're still partially dreaming and you wake up. But not 3 times. I said, and for the 3rd time to be solid, like, I said, there's got to be something to this. I said, well, what did my dad say? She said, I haven't told him. She said, I wanted to talk to you first. I went, oh, okay. So I want to know what you think, she says. So I sat there, I carried on drinking my tea, and I said, well, I personally think it's that he's trying to talk to you through dreams. He probably doesn't even know he's doing that, and possibly is he ill? She says, I have no idea. She says, I haven't spoken to him for a couple 3 months. I said, well, that's my dad. And she says, no. I said, well, if it was up down to me, I would go and see him. And she says, yeah. So she says, stop here then, shall I go and get your dad? So she went off, brought my dad back, sat down, we had all drink a cup of tea, and she told him. And he went, well, why didn't you tell me? And she says, well, I didn't want to worry you. She says, I wanted to talk to Karen because she sort of is into this type of thing. I wasn't, but I did tarot cards, so I think that's why she wanted to talk to me about it. And he said, well, all right then, let's ring him. So he phoned him there and then and asked him if he was ill, and he didn't say anything. And my dad says, Karen's going to bring me up there now. I'm like, I am? She says, and I'm going to have a quick chat to you. So he gets changed, get in the car. My mum stopped at home, and we went up there, and I dropped him off, and I went and did a bit of shopping, and then I came back for him, because he wanted to be on his own. Gets in the car. He said, I'll tell you when I get back to your mother. I said, yeah, all right then. So we get home and sorted the shopping out that I bought for my mum. And he said, right, I've had a long conversation with him. He's definitely ill. And my mum and I looked at each other. Oh my love. So from then, being my uncle lived on his own, he had nobody really. My dad took charge of it. And basically he had liver failure and he didn't have long to live. So him putting his hand on his stomach, clearly that's where this part in your abdomen is where your liver is, isn't it? And my mother's never got over that he visited her instead of visiting my father. And I said, well, clearly you're receptible to this. I said, you are, because you've seen other things in the past. And unfortunately my uncle didn't live very long after that. There was a lot of to and fro into hospital, and he passed away from liver failure. I don't know how long he'd been ill for, but quite a while, I think. So I have no idea how that would work. How somebody, I suppose, telepathic, spiritual through your dreams, universe, your archangels of some sort. I don't honestly know. But my mother definitely saw this, and she believed what she saw, and it was some sort of omen that forced my dad to make sure that my uncle was all right, and took him to the doctors, and I got appointments and found out that he hadn't got long to live. So that's as true as I'm sitting here. Most peculiar, particularly as it visited it 3 times, and it sounded like it needed more strength or energy to get the message across. It took 3 nights to do it. I said, "Did you see him again?" She went, "No." And after, when he passed away, Mum said she didn't see him again. But what was interesting is that he was younger, and he was in the army when he was younger, and she said he got a uniform on, like a khaki uniform. But what made it a little difficult was it was in this blue aura, so she couldn't tell the colour. Fascinating. She was, for my mum to tell me that, because my mother was to the point, and I do as you're told, sort of thing. Oh, I did. For her to tell me that was very interesting. So, what do you think to that? Telepathic? If you're dreaming through your dreams, is it that? Is it your spiritual guide or universe telling us all these different things? Is it because you've got to be specific in being able to receive these messages? It's a good question. So, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for subscribing and liking and commenting, etc. So, there should be another video here that you might like to watch. If you'd watch that, I'd be most grateful. If you'd subscribe, I really would be grateful, because it would help the channel a great deal. Please let me know what you think. Leave your comments and I'll reply to you. Thank you very much for watching again. Take good care of yourselves. Bye for now.